Good day, everybody, and welcome to our last of our series in digital marketing. Use your website to attract, engage, and nurture your prospects and visitors. So let me go ahead and introduce today's presenters. First, we have Debbie Howard, the CEO of Senior Living Smart. Hey, Deb.
Hey, Andrea. Hey, everybody.
And we also have joining us Paul Trusick, who is the Director of Digital and Inbound Marketing with Senior Living Smart. Hey, Paul.
Hi. How's everyone doing?
And we have our special guest, Carlene Moto, Executive Vice President of Sales with Belmont Senior Living. Hey, Carlene.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Thanks so much for joining us. Okay, so my first question is why? Why is it important that your website attract, engage, and nurture visitors?
Sure, absolutely. I can answer that for you, Andrea. I think today's marketing channels have most definitely changed in how we use them in the past, and it's just not working for today's customer. Their needs have changed. The way the consumer does research is very different, especially when you're dealing with today's adult child. The technology provides more information on the back end more quickly, and consumers are much more educated than before. What we know now is so much more about the consumer journey to make informed decisions regarding buyer behavior. Marketing best practices are also changing from more of an outbound method to that of more of an inbound methodology.
Back in the day, your typical top 3 referral sources were Yellow Pages, local newspaper advertising, and word of mouth. So the Yellow Pages and local advertising have become the internet, specifically your website. So we really have to rethink our tactics and strategies to meet our prospects where they are and interact with them in a different way, because what we've done in the past just won't work going forward.
So basically what I'm hearing is that what you're saying is the main place today where you can attract, engage, or nurture visitors is the website.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a huge change and shift in where we're at from digital marketing. Don't forget your website's your #1 sales and marketing tool. Prospects visit your community website an average of 7.8 times along their decision-making journey. So no longer is the website static and flat, informational, brochure type. It needs to be engaging with resources, content-rich, interactive, content geared toward and focused on the prospect. You spend a lot of money building a site and adding SEO to drive traffic, but once the prospects get to the website, there are very little touch points to have them engaged. They're coming to find solutions or answers to the problem at hand, and it might be confusing once they get to your website and they don't have the answers and they're not becoming engaged. They quickly bounce off of your website to a competitor or a third-party lead provider that may in fact have the value-added resources or immediate answers to meet them in their journey. And 70% of the buying decision is made before prospects ever walk into a community.
That's really a big change, because it used to be that we were the source of information, and people, families would come in and they really didn't know much about the industry, and we would be kind of their trusted advisor, and we'd be able to answer their questions. Now they're able to download ebooks and guides and look at pricing, and when they come in they're really fully armed. So our websites have to be that content-rich, transparent kind of resource for them, so that we can start building trust and relationship, and making sure that we're getting the right content to the right prospect at the right time. So one of our members, Vitality Senior Living, right now is converting 48% of their website leads to deposits. So Carlene, I bet you can remember back in the day when the sales teams kind of used to dismiss internet leads as being maybe high volume but low quality, and they kind of sat on the corner of the desk, and people responded to them at the end of the day, because they really weren't considered very high quality. But now what we're finding is that these are really highly qualified leads. We just have to make sure to interact with them and kind of meet them where they are and give them the right information at the right time.
Absolutely, Deb, and that's been our experience also at Belmont Village is that, one, there's an educational component with the sales associates to ensure that they understand that the leads that are now coming in directly from the website are extremely valuable. Many of them are time sensitive, and many of them are ready to engage with our sales associates and also set up a tour to come in and see the community.
Deb, do you have any statistics on what Vitality is seeing in terms of their engagement?
Yeah, so what they're finding is that, because they have so many kind of sticky points, entry points to engage with their website visitors, the visitor is, over the course of their journey, whether it's maybe 7.8 times is the normal number of times it takes to convert on a regular website, because they've done some of the tactics that we're going to talk about today, like adding, live chat and rubric, as well as, content strategy and landing pages with ebooks and guides. They're giving the visitor and the prospect so many choices in terms of, how they interact and how they engage with the website, that, we're finding that 4 or 5 visits, is all that it takes to convert. So obviously, the more we can scale back from 7.8 visits to get them to give us their contact information to 5 visits, that's going to shorten the sales cycle and improve the quality. But what Vitality is seeing is that the website visitors, the conversions are even higher than professional referral sources. So they're, which is kind of unheard of. Back in the day, it was like those professional referral sources were closing at about 50% of the time, and those were the golden tickets that everybody wanted. But right now, at least what Vitality is seeing is about 36% of their conversion to deposits is with professionals, but 48% is from their website. And when you look at just, people who say, well, I heard about you on the internet in terms of just general awareness, those conversions are only about 9%. So we have to get them from, just searching on the internet for keywords and really get them engaged in your website and in your brand and in your, content. And then that gets them from a 9% conversion to a 48% conversion.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Debbie. I just wanted to note there's a few rules that your website needs to follow to help attract prospects, and that's aside from being an informational type site with really static content. Debbie, did you want to elaborate on a few of those?
Oh, about the content strategy, static versus gated?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, a lot of it is we want to be able to have some level of gated content that just requires some very basic information in exchange for downloading a really comprehensive ebook or guide or checklist. That premium content that's so valuable for prospects as they're making their decision. One of the things that's worked well is kind of progressive profiling, where the first time that somebody interacts and maybe grabs an ebook from your website, maybe they just have to give their first name, last name, and email address. But if they come back to your website, they'll see, and they want to get another piece of premium content, they won't have to fill out those contact pieces, but maybe you can ask different questions, like what lifestyle they're interested in, or what their time frame is for moving, or something else. So as they're interacting with your website and kind of consuming your content, some of the stuff that's gated, you can really use a progressive profiling technique to learn more and more about these leads as they keep coming back and your website recognizes them as a return visitor. You do have to have some content that's ungated, because people may not be ready for that, but I think that's a good strategy.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I mean, it's almost synonymous with a prospect walking into your community. You want them to feel at home, and you want them to engage with sales. Same goes for your website. You want it to be easy for them to engage with content on your website. You want it to be very clear and concise, and you want the website to meet or even exceed their needs.
So you think about the front door of your website, it's kind of like the first impressions of driving up to your community. If there's, trash out front, or the signage is confusing and no one knows where to park, you're not going to have that great kind of front door experience. And it's the same with your website. How was that kind of first impression? Is it Is it easy to know where to go in and out, and kind of how do you find your way around?
Yeah, and you think that in this day and age it'd be best practices, but in most cases it's not always that way. And I spoke a little bit about the site being clear and concise, and I'm sorry for this lovely eyesore of a old school web page, but this is just kind of a worst case scenario. And there's still some sites out there that don't fall far from this example. Obviously you want the information to be easy to digest. You want the site to load fast, not to frustrate the end user experience. Same with navigating the site for information. It has to be visually appealing. And what you want the consumer to engage with, that information really needs to be front and center. You don't want too many elements on the site that are vying for attention. And I think websites have come quite a way. I mean, this example here is something typical that those of you that remember GeoCities or AOL Pages, anyone can make a website. And while there are plenty of free tools out there today, such as Wix and Squarespace, your niece or nephew or your mom and pop shop down the street, anyone can put together a pretty basic website, but it truly takes a concerted effort between design, development, content strategy, marketing automation to make that website function like a well-oiled machine. The industry really needs to get away from building websites that function as static, brochure-style informational sites. The website should really have a job and truly be an extension of your sales and marketing team. And we spoke a bit ago about using your website to answer some common questions in providing solutions to your visitors. And in our next slide, we'll discuss some of those top-of-mind questions.
So most senior living websites have two audiences. Assisted living and memory care, the primary audience is the adult child, and the secondary audience is the older adult who may be looking for themselves or a spouse. Independent living, it's a little bit more reversed, but they really have some similar questions, the basics of where am I going to live and what am I going to do and can I afford it and who's going to take care of me, are kind of universal. But there are different priorities. So the highest priority for an older adult looking for a community for themselves or a spouse is really choice. They want choice, they want personalization, and that's kind of the number one thing that they're looking for. For the adult child, it's more about the competency of the staff as being that number one, safety, security, competency of staff. Those things are important to the older adult, but they tend to fall farther down below things like choice, independence, and lifestyle and amenities. So our website has to kind of have all of those components because you're probably getting visitors who are kind of in different places, but we are talking to two different audiences.
That's a great point, Deb, and I think a lot of this data came from April Lamont and Lead Insight, and they basically track consumer behavior on websites, and so they have a lot of great data about how the consumer searches and what information they're looking for.
Yeah, she actually publishes every year an online research behavior kind of white paper, and it's over 1.5 million searches, and it's how people search, how often they come back, what information they're looking for. So it is a really interesting piece.
Right. So you have to attract different prospects looking for different things, but then probably people are in different stages of readiness.
Yeah, they really are, and I think that this may be the biggest opportunity right now. When I look at most websites, they are really just built for the 10% of your visitors that are in the action stage. People who are in crisis, people who need an answer now, are really a small minority of people on your website. 90% of them are just in awareness, trying to figure out what are the options, what do I need to know, what's all this lingo mean, how do I make the best choice? And then they're in research stage, really trying to understand the day-to-day life and lifestyle accommodations and all of the different kind of ins and outs of what does it mean to live in a community. And then the other one is planning. People who are planning know that they need to do something, but they're trying to figure out where and when, and so they're spending a lot of time on funding solutions and transitions and downsizing. So I think, most of the websites that I go to, it's all about, here's our community and this is why you should pick us, and, do you want to tour today? How about now? How about now? Ready to tour? And really that's the only thing that they're speaking to. Whereas websites, of today and going forward, the real thought leadership in website development is balancing this and making sure that there's content to provide along that journey so that people keep coming back to you as they're moving throughout these kind of stages of readiness. So that's, I think, the biggest opportunity is most of us are losing the 90% of people that are not going to move in the next 30 days because we just don't have a plan to nurture them and to keep them engaged and keep them coming back to your brand until they kind of opt in for and raise their hand to say, okay, now I'm closer to planning or action. Now those leads can go over to the sales team. Because the sales team really can't manage more than about 10 to 12 active leads that are really in action and need help today. So we can't give them all the leads because they'll never have time for the earlier stage ones. So we've got to find a way to use marketing automation and lead nurturing to make sure that we are keeping that 90% really engaged until they move through their stages of change into planning and action.
So your website becomes basically another salesperson.
Yeah, they definitely, it should, absolutely.
And I'm glad you brought that up, Debbie, because as you mentioned earlier with Carlene, a lot of the leads coming through on a website, they were coming in high volumes, but they were sitting on the desk of sales team members because they weren't necessarily qualified. So your website really is truly a complement and your #1 sales tool. It used to just be marketing to tell your story, but now you have the option to warm up your marketing qualified leads, those who might engage with content on your website, sign up for your newsletter, request or download an online brochure. You can warm them up closer to that sales qualified lead before ever contacting the sales team. So those who request a home visit, once they're ready in that stage of awareness to do the community tour, all of which can be accomplished with the lead nurture campaigns based on how users are interacting with the site.
Yeah, that's right, Paul. And I think that, this slide is really an eye-opener for a lot of people. So often I'll hear, we just need more leads. Can you just go get us more leads? Well, there's 1.5 million searches for what we offer per week. We really don't have a lead generation issue. We really have a conversion issue. I love the statistics that 45% of your website prospects will make a decision within 12 months. Now that decision might not be you, and it might not even be senior living. It might be to stay home or move in with family, but they're going to make a decision. And 75% of them will buy from the first person they speak with or engage with is another way of saying it. So, just being there and being able to interact with people when they're ready and when our solutions are kind of top of mind is really important.
That's great. So the statistics really show us why you need to make your website, engaging. But now here's the big question: how do you do it?
Yeah, absolutely. And there are a few different ways to create, as you might call, lead magnets. And all of these you can incorporate. A lot of them are quick wins, but others take a little bit more strategy. And we'll cover a few of these tools to engage and nurture your website visitors, including live chat, our interactive surveys, inbound content videos, and behavior tracking. So live chat, as I mentioned, it's a quick win to capture prospects' attention. It allows them to ask questions, find answers to things that they can't find on the website, and in an anonymous way without necessarily having to give up their email address. So it's an instant communication through the website without them having to pick up the phone call. You definitely have to choose the right tool, chat tool, but it's a very low-cost option to capture prospects on your website, reduce bounce rates, and convert more visitors into exclusive and unshared leads.
So, Carlene, how long have you been using live chat, and can you share with us some of the results that the Belmont team has experienced?
Sure. So, Deb, in 2016, we launched a new brand look at Belmont, which included, of course, our website, our advertising messaging, on-hold messaging, business cards, brochures. We went through a complete brand overhaul, and our content strategy was built around the voice of the customer. So a lot of our messaging that you'll see on our website and also on our advertising is coming from direct feedback from our customers, who can be our residents, families, employees, or professionals, what their testimonials are and what they've shared with us. As we began to build the website with rich content, we wanted to make certain that we were driving consumers, one, to our site, but that they were also staying on our site and keeping them engaged. As you know, when someone's on your site, the last thing you want them to do is to bounce off and then end up going to a third-party referral source, because that's when your resident acquisition costs can really get very expensive. So we actually worked with Senior Living Smart to vet different companies that provided live chat, which enabled our consumer, as they went to our website, to be able to engage online immediately with, to obtain feedback about our communities, the ability to set up tours immediately. And what we have found is that in 2017, we've generated about 424 leads directly from live chat that have resulted in 11 move-ins. So you take those 11 move-ins, you take what your average rent and care charges are, and then you look at average length of stay of around 22 months. That's really, really significant. And it's also significant when you look at what the cost was to generate that, again, versus if you're looking at potentially paying a third-party referral source company that may be charging, 75% up to 100% of the first month rent and care. The other thing that live chat has provided for us, there's been some direct and indirect benefits. Some of the indirect benefits that we started to see, which we didn't plan for, was that our own family members internally, when they go to our website, utilize live chat as a vehicle to also address concerns or compliments that they may have. So this has enabled us to take that information, very rich information, to be able to utilize in social media outlets. Also, if there's information that comes in that is one of your own customers that may have a concern they want to be able to express, it's so much more better if that comes to your own website through live chat versus going to Yelp or some of the other social media outlets that exist that take a long time to repair some of that if it's out there. So a lot of our, again, internal family members, our own employees have gone to live chat if there's something that they want to get an initial immediate response from, and we're able to act extremely quickly and respond to that need.
That's awesome. And I know that, not all live chat is good chat. So, when we were vetting different providers, we definitely wanted to stay away from people that were in other countries, maybe had language barriers or cultural barriers, and made sure that we were looking for people who were hired, for empathy, that were, American and college educated. And we've had questions about, should they bring chat in-house and have their sales team, kind of manage the chat. And love to hear what you think. I would not want my salespeople kind of sitting there and responding to chat, and so much of the effectiveness of that interaction is you've got to be paired with a company that's going to have a response time when somebody clicks on that chat box that's certainly under 30 seconds, preferably under under 15 to 20 seconds, because you lose them. And I just don't really see that it's realistic for our sales teams to be able to be sitting there waiting for the chat box to pop up and be able to respond. What do you think?
One, we never even tried it, and I wouldn't.
Yeah.
So I strongly discourage it. Again, you want you want your local sales teams involved in, selling zone in their database, working with families that are at the community level. And I could not be able to guarantee if you're not able to respond within that 30 seconds, they're going to be off your site, and then your customer is going to be frustrated. Live chat has been fantastic. It has been very seamless. Their responsiveness is outstanding. I do have someone dedicated to be able to work directly with them. So if they do want a local representative from our organization to be able to call back, speak, handle the situation, I have that backup. But to be able to utilize my local sales team for those efforts, I just could not make it work, especially with everything else that they're spending time on at the community level. Again, it just takes one new move in, and they are tied up with the family through that paperwork process, making sure that they're getting familiar with the community. They can be away from their desk for an hour, and if this comes in, you've missed that opportunity. You've also disappointed someone.
Yeah, absolutely. So another, yeah.
Yeah, can you tell us a little bit about some of the interactive surveys available?
Yeah, so we really recommend and have seen great results from a new company, kind of new on the block, Rubric, and they offer 3 kind of interactive, I would call them kind of self-guided decision tools. So a lot of times when people are on your website, they're just trying to figure out, how urgent is this situation? Is this something I need to address now? Can I delay this? Are there other solutions that I should be looking at before making the move into senior living? And so what we found is that giving them the opportunity to discover for themselves, what the options are and what might be the best fit for them is really helpful. It keeps them on your website an average of 5 minutes, which is awesome because we know the longer on the website, the higher the conversion. And there's 3 different surveys that they have, and you can place them kind of throughout your website. If you have a section dedicated specifically to your memory care program, you could have the one on, is this dementia, kind of living there. If you have independent living in a certain area of lifestyle, you could have the one, is it safe to drive? And then assisted living is really geared towards, is it time to get help? And the online assessment tool collects 28 data points. And gosh, I kind of wish that some of my salespeople collected 28 data points on all of my leads. So, and it turns it in, as Andrea is showing you now, it turns it into a report. This is an actual report that was submitted. It kind of gives them a score, a care fit report with a score. So in this case, it's kind of elevated. Dad's at 82 out of 100, which means, things are pretty serious. And it turns all of the survey questions into a story and what the situation is, a little bit about the family, about the care needs, about financial, about veterans, about kind of their willingness to move and where they are in their decision-making process. So really helpful. It's just it's something that the families really appreciate. And Carlene, I know that you recently kind of trialed Rubric, and I think you've rolled it out now kind of across your platform. What kind of results are you seeing from Rubric?
Yeah, so we've been really, really impressed, one, with their ability to keep someone on our website longer, but 2, just the content is extremely thorough. It's well thought out, extremely professional. So we've been in the pilot now with Rubric for the past 5 months, and we've been looking at data related to how many of the consumers are willing to complete the assessment, how many of them, once they complete it, are willing to give us information that includes either their name, phone number, email address, and even selecting a location that is best for them and wants us to contact them after they've completed. So over the last 5 months, we have seen, basically we have generated about 420 Rubric opt-ins, which these are individuals that have taken the tool. They're also willing to have us, again, provide the information to say, yes, I am interested. Please contact me. I want more information on the community. Out of the 420, we've scheduled 23 tours. And many of these tours, looking at your screen now where it has the around-the-clock care, the care level that's needed, best options. They actually have come into the community with the assessment tool in hand and said, I'm concerned. I took this on behalf of my dad's situation. I need to do something. And they actually have the assessment tool in hand. Out of the 23 tours that we've generated really since the end of June, we have had 4 move-ins that have directly been a result of rubric. Our goal is to continue to look at averaging 50% of the opt-ins, so 50% of the individuals that are coming to our website will complete the tool. We're also looking at a 20% conversion rate and then a 50% opt-in rate that basically says, I need to do something and I want someone to call me. I want more information. Here's my name, address, and the location that I'm looking for. So again, I think, this is another low-cost option that really adds a level of engagement to your website. I think it builds extreme credibility around the website and also your own clinical capabilities. And it does create urgency. As I said, many people after they take it call and say, I'm really worried. I did complete this and I do need to do something.
Yeah. Great. Thanks, Carlene.
And thank you both for the recap of live chat and the survey tools that we use often with communities. A third aspect of creating some of that engaging content comes from blogging. Everyone's familiar with blogs. Everyone has a different set of resources allocated to creating this content. But we don't want just anyone coming to your website. We want people that are most likely to become leads and ultimately happy customers. But how do you get them? You want to attract the right customers with relevant content at the right time, just when they're looking for it. So when we were talking about stages of readiness through awareness, research, and planning, these are key areas before they get to the action stage of creating that content that's going to meet them halfway and look at you as a thought leader within your community. So inbound marketing definitely starts with content. The blog is a single best way to attract new visitors to your website. In order to get found by the right prospective customers, you have to create that educational content that speaks to them and answers those questions. Your customers begin their buying process online, usually by searching to find something they have questions about. So you need to make sure that you're showing up when and where they search. And to do that, you can increase your presence with tools that will help you define and implement your content strategy, editorial calendar, and then speaking to the slide. And I think it's astounding that there's 434% pages are indexed more with blog-related content. So you're not just speaking to consumers who are digesting the information on your website, but it's kind of a double-edged sword. You're not just creating this content for your prospects, but you're also creating it for search engines. So some of that relevant content that you want to be indexed on, that's part of that content strategy. So you may develop a piece around a keyword or a keyword phrase, and that's all related to this industry and solving some of the questions that the prospects have before stepping foot into the community. And for anyone that's been part of our previous digital marketing webinars in this series, you may have heard me mention as part of this kind of tiered stepping stone that many communities that are currently blogging, and there's a handful that are blogging, they only post material that's related to the community's resident stories or events. So rarely do communities have additional resources to create the value-added educational content. And to take it a step further, most don't have that extra call to action for additional content offers. I think it's pretty common to have a contact form, but in most cases that's all we see with a call to action. What we prefer is within this educational content of blogging that we do have some additional content offers, whether or not they're downloadable free guides, checklists. We've even seen some, next steps in planning your move, and that's definitely in that planning stage of readiness. So at that point, that's when we create that call to action and then landing page. And in this day and age, information is the internet's currency. So in exchange for some of these additional free resources that consumers are opting in for, that helps aid us in the marketing automation and the lead nurturing side of these workflows that we create. So we're keeping the prospect engaged with your community, coming back for additional resources, and ultimately getting them to raise their hand and take the next step to pick up the phone or request to come in for a visit. So all of these items should be working for you in the background to help complement the marketing side and get them closer to having a conversation with the sales team. And we will go into some video facets, and we realize that I think video is a great way to complement the content on your website, and who doesn't love a cute puppy video on YouTube? But for all intent and purposes on your website, it's great to have actual humanistic stories. This is a video library from Atria Senior Living, and many senior living companies are adding these professional videos to engage their visitors. And we show that videos have about 4 times greater engagement than reading text. So even virtual tours, interactive site maps, testimonials, they're all great strategies to increase over time on your website. And according to Cisco, video accounts for about 69% of all consumer internet traffic. So it's definitely something to kind of keep, if your community is not already introducing some video on your website, it's definitely something to kind of keep on the docket for this next year.
Great, thanks, Paul.
Absolutely, and finally, another piece of that is behavior tracking. We mentioned before we have many more tools at our fingertips than we ever had before with just, say, Google Analytics. We want to know what your visitors are doing on your website, what they're looking at, and what they're clicking on. There are very many tools out there that tracks visitor behavior on the website. And some of that tracking visitor behavior, it helps us make informed decisions on the end user experience. And from that, we can make iterative changes to the website based on how users are currently interacting. Prompture, for instance, from Lead Insight, is a tool that not only maps the prospect behavior on your website from first interaction through conversion, but it learns your prospects' behaviors and personas and then prompts them with custom content to provide the right messaging to the right prospect at the right time to help lead them and guide them down that conversion path.
Great.
And I know we've kind of covered a lot of these examples, but before we get into any questions, we're always available for any one of these, some of the lead engagement tools that we covered today. If you reach out to us, we can most definitely put together a demo for any and all of these different tools.
Great, thanks, Paul.
Absolutely.
We've got a few questions that came in. One of the questions is, would you still do Yellow Pages ads with engagement tools?
I think if I can speak to this, and then Debbie and Carlene, feel free to add, but I see, in some rural areas where digital may just not be there yet, I think it's really looking at your demographics. If you're in a metropolitan area where you have a high engagement, say on social media and other online traffic, you might start steering away from spending money on Yellow Pages. Yet if your community is in a very rural area, I would say that maybe Yellow Pages might be the way to go if that demographic hasn't fully moved over into the digital age. But just in the last 5 to 10 years, there's been a huge shift, not just with the older adult, but the adult child in how they use digital marketing to search. So I think we're definitely steering away from the traditional side of things.
Yeah, the other thing that we're seeing, Paul, too, is that the adult child that's, looking for their parent that typically was, daughter-in-law, we're starting to see a lot more grandchildren involved in the decision making. And I could tell you my children that if they were assisting their grandmother, they don't know what Yellow Pages is. They don't use it. So I do think that as we're starting to see more involvement from the grandchildren, they are all digital.
Mm-hmm. I'll be honest, I can't remember the last time I've ever had the white pages or yellow pages delivered to my doorstep. It's been that long.
Okay. Another question, there's a couple of questions that came in on blogs, so I'll kind of ask them together. One was, how often do you blog, and where can you get the content?
Sure.
I guess. Oh, go ahead, Paul.
Oh, I was gonna recommend. It depends on bandwidth, but most of our communities see great results by blogging at least 2 to 4 times per month. Some of those with the premium content included.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. 2 to 4 times a month is ideal. And you have to have a strategy to it as well. I mean, it's really about, first of all, kind of starting with who's your audience and making sure that you're writing content to match that's going to be relevant for people who are in, an awareness stage versus a research stage versus a planning stage. We're finding that there's not a whole lot of engagement with content, blog content that's related to the action stage, because those folks honestly are so much in crisis and they have so much urgency already that they don't have time to read blogs. But looking at the topics that would be interesting and relevant to people at different stages of readiness, and then understanding how would people find that content, what keywords would they use, and building kind of an editorial calendar of, stages of readiness. Here's the topics that are in alignment with each of those. Here are the keywords and how people would search for that type of content, and then kind of putting together your editorial calendar. That's an approach that we found to be really helpful. And if you have the bandwidth to do it internally, where maybe you have your health and wellness team that's writing some content versus your culinary team versus your engagement team, you can do some content on your own. Some people also leverage professional partners, hospice partners or home care partners or physician partners to say, would you write once a quarter or something? Just remember the content does have to be original, because if you just are reposting other content, you're going to get dinged by Google for duplicate content. So just kind of be aware of that. We can always help if you need help outside, if you don't have the bandwidth, but that's what we've seen to be most effective.
Great, thank you. Just a couple of more questions. Does it take a lot of work to integrate these tools on your website?
Absolutely not.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. No,
you go ahead. And I was just going to say, from a technical perspective, they're pretty easy, especially live chat. There's a little bit of work because it's so custom to develop live chat scripts to make sure that there's an interview process per community, and then same with the surveys. There might be some items within those that you want to customize for the community. So they are custom solutions, but as far as implementing them, it's usually a little quick, tiny JavaScript code that we provide to the webmaster, the one who's orchestrating updates to the website to implement.
No, and I would just echo what you said, Paul. We have our own proprietary CRM system, so probably not as, probably creates more challenges than some of the other CRM systems that are out there. And with our website team and our IT team, actually, it was very easy to utilize and to get up running pretty quickly.
Oh, that's great. Last question from our attendees, and this is actually a really great question. Someone asked, what are your thoughts on online applications? And Carlene, I know Belmont has an online application. Do you see it as a positive?
I think absolutely. And again, we're finding that, as you guys know, in this industry, human capital and trying to recruit, retain has to be a priority. So we're finding that, you know, a lot of the things that we're doing to be able to drive more consumer engagement, we're also applying to our employees. So you need to make it simpler, easy, friendly to be able to do that. So I definitely support it.
And one thing about how you guys have set up your career page, not only does it have an online application, but you also talk about the benefits, and you have employee testimonials. So you almost have to do the same thing with your employees that you want to hire as you do with prospects. You want to attract them, you want to nurture them, you want to make your website engaging and give them the information that they're looking for.
Absolutely.
Great. And then I just have one last question for the group. If you could only do one, what would you do?
I think you've got to really dig into really individual website performance data to be able to answer that question, because some people, you know, based on an analysis of your website, some people are going to be, you know, really struggling with attracting. Other people, maybe it might be a time on page or a bounce rate issue or an engagement or conversion issue. So I think you'd really have to know a little bit, you know, more, you know, more information. But working with somebody who can kind of dig in and take a look at performance and data and then, you know, strategy, I think they can help you really identify that. I would say in terms of cost, you know, I think live chat is kind of a no-brainer just because it's probably the least expensive lead generation. But so is Rubric, because I'm pretty sure that when at least I looked at it from the performance our members are getting, they're coming in at under $50 a lead on average. So when you think about that and you look at what Carlene has gotten in terms of, you know, tours and move-ins, it's a pretty low you know, customer acquisition cost. And I think some other strategies, like really coming up with a blogging and premium content and ebook type strategy with landing pages, that's a little bit, you know, more complex, takes a little bit longer, and is probably a little bit more, you know, expensive. But over the long term, it is the you know, information is the currency of your website. So you do have to invest in it. I just think it's a matter of figuring out budget and timing. So let us know if we can help with that.
Great. Well, terrific. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Special thanks to Carlene for your insight and your success stories. And Paul and Debbie, thank you for your thought leadership. And I hope everyone has a wonderful holiday season.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.